economía colonial latinoamericana dispuso de la mayor concentración de fuerza de trabajo hasta entonces conocida. Para hacer posible la mayor concentración.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Mexican-born, Chicago-based jazz drummer and composer Gustavo Cortiñas. We talked to him about his newest 2021 CD, Desafio Candente. This work explores the history of colonialism, imperialism, and neoliberalism in Latin America with 30-plus musicians and speakers from 11 countries over the course of 14 tracks full of videos. He was born and raised in Mexico City and is a graduate of Loyola University in New Orleans. His story is a great one. Enjoy.
We just got to live through it, you know? That's all you can do.
Yeah, we got to live through it to help each other out, and then the rest will be history.
That's right, man. That's right. We need each other. Well, hey, man, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for thinking of us. Thanks for checking out the material. I'm glad it's resonated with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think the thing I think about right now is I remember this time last year, kind of before COVID happened. You know, none of us knew it was going to happen, obviously. There's all these albums that are coming out. Now that I look at this year and all of the albums that are coming out, I'm still seeing the same influx. I'm so happy that you guys are putting out albums. So first and foremost, with this brand new double CD project, talk to me a little bit about your feelings on the timing of this and coming out during a pandemic and this time on Earth.
I would say this project had been cooking for about 3.5 years. You know, I've been working on this project since 2017, and like any baby, like any work, like anything, you put so much time, you got all these expectations, and you've got all this stuff. As you're approximating the release of it and whatnot, and definitely we were probably 75% of the way through when COVID hit. It's there's been lots of logistical complications getting things together. Some people who were going to be a part of the project ended up not being able to be a part of the project, which opened up opportunities for other people to come in. You know, there were some delays and there were some transformations that things just couldn't happen the way we envisioned them. But at the end of the day, we've been working on this for so long, and I was so committed to putting this out there, and I had the support of a lot of people that both with their time and their creativity, and with some people also like financially were able to be like, don't worry about this right now. We'll help you out anyway with this. I'm just happy that despite the circumstances, we've been able to put this out, and that so many beautiful people came together to put it forward, So those are kind of my feelings. These were not the circumstances that 3.5 years ago I expected I would be releasing this project, but nonetheless, this is a project inspired by many communities, that a lot of people put work into it, and this may be a time that people need music, so we're just happy to be able to put it out, and we've gotten a good response from people, and we're very appreciative of having been able to do this,
What do you ultimately want the listener to get from this experience? It's been years in the making. It's a big project. How do you want them to feel when they're done with this?
I mean, I've heard something about the autonomy of art, the idea that once you put something out there, it's no longer yours and you don't get to decide where it comes from. I enjoy when people tell me that they checked out the project and that it inspired them to go buy Galeano's book and read more about the history of Latin America. I enjoy it when people listen to the project and are able to hear all the diverse things that come up from the vast cultures in our continent, and they're able to be like, oh, wow, what inspired this? I really like this music. I want to dig into the roots of this. And so I really enjoy it when people from certain cultures that are included and into the music and the inspiration for the project, I'd be like, hey, I really love what we did with our music. But at the end of the day, I just hope people feel inspired by the music. I hope people are able to appreciate the vast and diverse communities from the Latin America and from the American continent in general. And hopefully they go with a little bit of history and a little bit of curiosity, the circumstances that have put us where we are today, you know?
Well, long before New Orleans and Loyola, you're from Mexico City. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood and how the seeds of music, and more specifically jazz, got intertwined into who you are.
Absolutely. I grew up in Mexico City. I started playing drums at the age of 10, even though percussion had always fascinated me. Jazz was not really a thing growing up. My home was, my dad and my mom loved music, but it was really all about the Beatles and some rock and roll when it came to, with my mom, and Mexican music, of course, Chabela Vargas and different singers from back there in Mexico, plus the pop from Mexico and everything. And my dad was really into classical music. He loved opera. He loved, we would have Beethoven and Wagner and Mozart ringing super loud at home. The neighbors would complain all the time because we lived in an apartment. So I was exposed to that kind of music growing up. Somebody once told me that it's like, I was telling them a little bit about that, my dad and music and Wagner. Is like, oh, maybe that's why you're so dynamic with your playing. I feel like that dramatic playing comes in your playing. They told me. I was like, perhaps. So anyway, that's how I got into music at first, and I started playing drums and started playing in rock bands and everything since I was an early teen. And at some point, I was invited to go to a master class that an American drummer was going to be giving in Mexico. I didn't know who the guy was, but his name is Dave Weckel, who you may know. And Dave Weckel played the drums in a way that I had never heard before during this master class. And I was very inspired by what I heard, and it just taught me. I was like, oh, wow, the drums can be played in so many more ways that I hadn't even imagined. And at that time, I was just like, man, Dave Weckel is a monster. There's not a lot of people there's no one like him probably, but I want to be as good as I can, you know? And then a couple of years later, a person who is now my friend started organizing, Octavio Chavarri is his name, and he started organizing this series of concerts in Mexico called NY at MX. And he would be bringing once a month great jazz artists. And on the first month, he brought the Dave Weckel band. And I was like, oh, I know that guy. I should go check that out. So I went to hear Dave Weckel. And then I was like, man, I should really check out the rest of this concert series and see what they're all about. And it just so happened that Branford Marsalis was in that concert series. Joe Lovano was in that concert series. The Dave Holland Quintet was there. The Bad Plus was there. So over the next few months after that, I was exposed to some of the top jazz artists, and I was dramatically inspired by what they did. And also seeing so many people playing music at that level kind of changed the narrative for me and taught me, it's like, oh, it's not just Dave Weckel who can do this. There are a lot of great musicians who play at this level, which means maybe you can do it too, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how I fell in love with jazz, just listening to those cats play beautiful music.
That's the beauty of this process, man. There's always that flashpoint where it begins, and, you know, you hear about Miles and Kinda Blue and all these shows. I love these stories. So let's go into, you get into the jazz, you start playing with cats, you're an educator, you influence younger musicians. What have you learned from the veterans and the big shots in the world of jazz that have in turn been something you've tried to teach the younger cats that you get around?
The most lessons are sometimes the most important lessons, and sometimes the most basic and important ones that we want to skip when we're young. You know, at least for me it was. So focusing on the groove, focusing on the swing, focusing on the fundamentals of the music and of your instrument, and listening to the tradition. And the tradition can mean whatever it means to you, you know. I think sometimes the tradition is spoken as you got to listen to Charlie Parker, and in the drums listen to Joe Jones and everything. And I definitely try to recommend that for my students. But I think the idea that no man is an island, that great music is made by standing in the shoulders of giants and through listening through the culture and the history of the music, we can tap into centuries of human activity, you know. When you listen to a great master musician, you're not just listening to the 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years that they have studied the music and the instrument, you know, but you're listening to a lineage. And it's a waste of your education if you don't take advantage of that lineage, you know, and if you try to tap in not only into what that person's playing, but that everything that they're channeling, because that way you can get into that history as well, and you can tap into that depth of knowledge. And it can be in jazz, it can be whatever music you're trying to get into, try to tap into that history, you know. And I think that's the most respectful and also the best way to do it. That's the most respectful way to do it, and also the best way to do it, because your music is going to gain a lot of depth by diving into that kind of stuff.
You are clearly, I can hear your enthusiasm. You love the craft. You love music. What is the most exciting thing every day waking up, knowing that you're going to be able to create art and music? What is it that gets you going the most?
Well, every day is different. I'll tell you something that I wasn't told to me before. Is when I was growing up and decided to be a musician, you hear a lot of things. You know, you hear, oh man, careful, you're going to be broke. It's going to be challenging, blah, blah, blah. Or you'll hear, oh, that's beautiful. You're going to do what you love for a living. You know, you hear those two aspects, you know, but you don't really hear that being a musician is doing what you love for a living, but that means so many other things. It means going out on the road or going out and hanging out with your friends and creating something beautiful with people in the moment all the time. It means that when I wake up every day, I'm working on myself, you know. I get the time to when I'm practicing, when I'm studying music, you're continually refining yourself, and both in a physical, mental, and spiritual way, you know. And I have learned to love the craft and the process of this working on myself. I believe that practicing the instrument has become almost like a meditation for me, something that zeroes me in and gives me peace and puts me in my space. And that's one of the things that I enjoy the most, even that time alone. And then being able to bring that peace and that centered focus into creating something with friends and with beautiful people. Even sometimes they can be friends you don't know, you know, but sitting down and with someone who you have so much in common, even though you don't know them, and being able to be like, hey, I want to, ready, go, and just playing something beautiful and new without even having met them. That's also something really inspiring to me, and I feed off of that process, you know.
What is it that you missed from that old world back in March that you're looking forward to going back to?
The communities. I think I feel like I've been fortunate enough that one way or another, throughout this year, I've still been able to play some gigs here and there, whether it has been gigs outside or some live stream gigs and stuff. But I've been able to connect with some of my friends and with some of the musicians that I like to play and keep some kind of creative energy going. But one of the things that I miss the most is the community built around the music, all those accidental encounters that you have with people from the scene that you don't usually play with, but that you will randomly play at a jam session, or you will be playing a festival together and you will get to hear each other just by happenstance and be able to be able to inspire each other and support each other and learn from each other, and that community aspect of the music, and not only and in and outside of the music, you know, is one of the things that I miss the most. I think these times have made it a little easy for all of us to kind of seclude ourselves into our homes, into our quote unquote safety away from COVID, and it's made us be very comfortable with just being in front of our screens. So I miss that other sense of community and pushing forward and inspiring each other and being constantly, randomly meeting new people and creating with new people and looking at what other people are creating, you know?
When we do return to the stage and we get back in the crowd, what do you hope we all realize about this long absence away from live music?
One of the things that I hope we remember or we learn from this is that I feel like throughout this year I have seen a lot of camaraderie come out of people. I've seen a lot of support that has been built in the community in order to keep musicians alive and paid for while we're not working as much, or to keep different cultural centers alive, or and I think one thing that I noticed is that these type of really horrible events have a way of bringing us together, you know, and even just, I think, like there was a really big snowstorm a couple weeks ago, and everybody that I saw on the street was helping each other and checking in on each other, even if they didn't know you. Like, I didn't remember being stopped for some reason because I had to make a phone call, and like 3 different people stopped to be like, hey, do you need to push? Do you need to jump? Or whatever, you know? And so I think when things like a big snowstorm or something like COVID happens, we all learn that, like, we all feel connected and we all feel equally vulnerable. And this makes us all feel like we're all on the same boat together and we support each other. And I just don't think that it's not the case for all the other challenges that we all face in life. We're all one paycheck away from being homeless, probably, you know, or from struggling to feed ourselves, or from being discriminated. You know, everybody can be a victim of all of those things. So I think hopefully some of this spirit of camaraderie and understanding for our fellow human beings can continue beyond this pandemic, so that we can keep supporting each other in the same ways and new ways, you know, so that we can build hopefully a better society together.
Right on. Final question is this. Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
I'm going to quote, I remember this. Yeah. I'm gonna quote Mr. Miguel Loyola, who has a record called Identity Starting, and it kind of parts from the idea that nobody has just one identity. We are perceived in different ways by each person that is in our life. You know, I, Gustavo Cortiñas, I am Mexican, but I'm also a Uruguayan person, and I'm also someone who lived in New Orleans, and someone who lived in Chicago, and I am a brother, I am a son, I am a boyfriend, I am an educator, I am a band leader, I'm also a bandmate, I'm also a sideman, I'm a student, so I'm a community member, so I think we all have lots of different identities, and we are perceived as such, and I think all I can say is that I consider myself to be a lucky person who finds himself being all of these different roles for many different people, who has the opportunity and the privilege to do what they love for a living, who has a roof over his head, and who's trying to make his community and the world a little better place from my little corner where I fight the good fight, hopefully.
Yeah, right on. Gustavo, thank you for taking the time out. I appreciate it. Good luck with the album.
My pleasure. Really appreciate you. Thanks for having us and for supporting the music. And I look forward to hearing from you again and talking more in the future and having you
for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview. We've been into the finest cats in Mexico, Chicago, Kansas City, and spots all over the world making fun of jazz. And thanks to Gustavo for his time, music, and stories. For more interviews, go to famous interviews with Joe Video on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz@youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.